Hello and welcome back to Modern Mondays here at Guardian Games in Portland, Oregon. We're Portland Paper. I'm Travis Cooper. I'm hanging out with match finder, producer, director, commentator extraordinaire,
Ian Lunger.
and we're getting a little George R. R. Martin up in the booth right now with a little bit of Song of Fire and Ice. A classic matchup of your Merfolk versus Burn. Ian, hot takes.
Uh, I think Merfolk's going to be in good shape here. I like Merfolk in this matchup. Um, Pre-board, post-board, I am a little bit nervous depending on how many searing effects Curran has. I think Merfolk could be in a rough spot.
And it looks like we have our other commentator extraordinaire hanging out with us. Gave us a much appreciated raid, Urchin. Thanks for watching. And yeah, I feel like some folks might be curious if it is just either Ian or myself doing multiple voices, but we are in fact two different people here. Um, and it's, yeah, Miss Urchin coming out this evening, but we're having a good time. And we get a Goblin Guide revealing a, wow, there's, what, what did that reveal over there? Another
Uh,
of our little green merfolk. Looks like
Unsure, yeah.
we're playing green-blue merfolk here.
Some nice Simic Merfolk.
And I've seen, everyone kind of likes to bash on Merfolk as being like the bad Aether Vial deck, but I feel like there's like metagame choices you can make where Merfolk can be decent. Also, you get Force of Negation, which is a pretty cool pickup for the deck because basically you can play that as your main deck counter spell, and all your other expendable dudes are going to be blue.
Amy dropping a Merfolk Trickster.
So tricky. And I feel like this might be a searing effect, which would, that's always a feel bad. Unless you have a Force of Negation. Nope. Nope.
Merfolk Trickster, just a little bit awkward in this situation that you just wish that you could do it after the creature has attacked, especially with something like a Goblin Guide where you might be able to flip a land off the top, but unfortunately because of how Trickster works, you have to do it before the attack step.
All right. Current going down to 13, taking 4.
Waterlogged Grove.
All right. Inspiring Vantage turned into an island. I feel like this matchup used to be tilted in Burn's favor until this is definitely aging me here. They printed Master of the Waves, which then sort of tilted it into Merfolk's favor. I'm curious if, with adding the green to the deck, if it's playing Master of Waves or what is in that 4-drop spot, if anything.
Yeah, honestly, I am not even remotely up to date on on what Merfolk is playing nowadays, especially the blue-green version.
Well, I've seen experiments with Collected Company, and, when you're playing that, maybe you're not playing Force of Negation. There's lots of known unknowns here, except we know that there's a lot of Merfolk.
So Curran choosing to fetch a mountain in this case rather than a white source. So Curran's still without a white source, uh, but currently winning the race here.
Yeah,
Amy,
Amy with just a Trickster left over is when all your Merfolks are going to cost 3 or less, except for that Master of Waves, is kind of a tricky spot to be in.
right, the Vile start would have been huge for Amy here at potentially forcing Curran out of being able to cast spells. If you can Vile in enough creatures to lock them under their own Eidolon, that can make a huge difference.
Chat says Simic Merfolk's going to be playing Oko. That's funny. I mean, Merfolk need to eat too.
It's true. Food is great here.
Ooh, dangerous spot to be. I think I see a Skewer the Critics and a Rift Bolt hanging out in Curran's hand, plus an unknown.
Certainly a tough spot to be if you're Amy. You have to keep these creatures back on defense here, or you're just dead, but you're also possibly just dead anyway. 5 is a decent life total. You're going to force Curran to have 2 spells, and Curran is still without white mana. Okay,
Yeah, I
well,
feel like if you're Curran, you can just basically pass the turn at this point. Yep.
so Amy has to engineer a way to win, to just win here, because the Rift Bolts are going to... So if Amy could have found a way to deal 8 damage there, her creatures couldn't be blocked because they had Island Walk and Curran had an island. And then as soon as the first Rift Bolt comes off suspend, it would trigger the Eidolon. So if there was any way that she could have gotten to 8 damage, like maybe if she'd had 2 Lords in hand.
Closer than it looked. Curran could also, yeah, that's. It was. I feel like that match was closer than it looked towards the end of the game. Yeah, but we don't know what the leftovers were in Amy's
Right.
hand.
But I do think it was quite close. Like it might not have felt like it, but I really, if Amy had had, you know, the right cards there, she would have just had Curran die to his own Eidolon trigger.
And as far as sideboard choices go, we don't quite know what the players have, but I would imagine that Amy's going to be bringing in any kind of like extra counter spells, like perhaps like a spell pierce or something in the sideboard that can just sort of turn the tides when you're playing this racing game. If you just counter a Searing Blaze or something, it can be really important.
Force of Negation, another great include in Merfolk. Not sure if Amy is playing that card or not, but that's been a card that has kind of appeared in recent Merfolk lists that I could see making a big difference. Because as we saw from last game, Amy did die with, I think, like 4 or 5 cards in hand at the end of the game. So if you can tempo them out and utilize kind of those extra cards that might end up just rotting in your hand.
Yeah, basically, what you want to do is to present enough pressure to make burn start targeting a burn spell towards one of your lords, and if you can then counter that spell and all your creatures are larger than X3, that you've locked up the game pretty much. For Curran, do you think Curran will bring in like Path to Exile in the matchup, or do you just want to keep all your burn spells in?
I'd keep my burn spells and bring in the other searing effects if the
Okay,
searing blood is available.
I can kind of see cutting Goblin Guide when you're on the draw here for Curran, because that's just going to get brick walled so easily. I do like keeping in Swiss Sphere and Eidolon, though.
Completely agree. And from Amy's side, possible that we'll see Kira, Great Glass Spinner, a card that I think has some decent utility in the matchup, making it difficult for Curran to land some of those big searing effects.
Looks like Amy's got a keeper and Curran's got a keeper.
And
Oh,
a pain-free start with a vial.
that's what you want to do here as Merfolk, because then you really insulate yourself from Curran getting a lot of value off an Eidolon of the Great Revel, and in fact, if Curran does play the card, it can be a liability. I'm excited to watch this matchup. It's fun.
Yeah, it's it's the old kind of an old-timey, well, this matchup has existed for a long time. Kind of maybe fell out for a while. But now it's back.
Lightning Bolt and Merfolk have existed from almost the very beginning.
Yeah.
All right, once this vial ticks up to 2, and if we get another land drop, we can start getting some serious damage in here.
And especially when Merfolk has turned one of Curran's lands into an island, this deck can turn the corner extremely quickly. It kind of deploys a few threats, and then all of a sudden, oftentimes, the game is just over in one attack.
So pretty safe to deploy a Lord in this spot because Curran's just left with the island there. Probably not playing Dismember.
But no land drop for Amy here is a little bit rough.
no land drop and no force mitigation.
You really want to be double spelling if you're on Amy's side of the table. That will allow you to kind of outpace Curran's one-for-one trades, as Curran is currently able to just continue to get in some damage with this Swift Spear, which is kind of negating how bad it's been that that he had to use a lightning bolt on a creature.
Yeah, that's a pretty important aspect of this particular game is Curran able to leverage even his spells pointed at creatures into damage with this Monastery Swift Spear.
One thing that Amy can dodge here with this activation in combat is Amy can play the Merfolk Trickster and dodge any searing effects, as Curran has not played a land drop this turn, so does not have landfall. Whoa, hold up. We're in combat here. Oh. I was expecting Amy to block.
Yeah, likewise.
Sorry about that. I thought you had tapped it down pre-combat or something.
I was just taking my prowess.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, it's a little confusing. It's possible that Amy may have missed a potential block here.
For 2 blue and another trickster.
Second Trickster.
So it felt like Amy was maybe wanting to have these tricksters just turn into 4/4s, perhaps. If we have a land, we could even get the Mutavault in there. Could be a swing for. Oh.
Do we see the Lord here?
Yep. So 3, 6, 9. Yep. All right, I'll go to 8.
So we're putting Curran on a 1-turn clock, but I mean, it's very possible that Curran can just go off and
Ooh,
kill Amy this turn. Okay. All right, this is huge.
all right. Well, spreading Seas the Mountain is going to mean that Curran's just going to be able to get this Rift Bolt off plus 1 more spell if Curran has another mountain.
Right. And, you know, Curran did not play a land last turn, and it looks like he has searing effects in hand, so.
Okay, now we're playing defensive here, bolting the Lord.
And we do pick up a fetch, so. However, Curran does not have 2 red sources, so Searing Blaze is still not active. The Spreading Sea is doing a lot more than I was expecting in this matchup.
I feel like we might do something like a block plus fetch and lightning bolt.
Yeah. A little surprised to see the attack here from Curran. Amy representing lethal currently with 2 Tricksters and 2 Mutavaults. A Lord would likely overload anything that Curran has available. Even a single burn spell wouldn't be enough if we vial in a Lord in addition to attacking with the 2 Mutavaults.
I will fetch down to 7.
Fetches to 7. And I have to grab a basic mountain here.
I feel like we're going to bolt something, but if we have any Lord, that's going to be lethal.
Yep.
Lord, or even like a Spell Pierce.
All bolt Mutavault. Yep.
A bolt on the Mutavault.
Yep, no blocks.
Amy goes to combat. This is huge because it also takes Curran off any fetches for the turn.
4.
Yeah. It's interesting lines that these players are taking.
Curran's still sitting on it. Looks like a hand of uncastables.
Yeah, it feels like Amy was making a really good read of like Curran stumbling on lands and then wanting to get Curran down so that a fetch land doesn't turn it on.
Trigger. So, yeah, it's a draw card, right?
We can't cast Light of the State. Oh wait, we did have a. Did we have a Rift Bolt on? No. Okay, I'm gonna interrupt the players.
No, we can't. We didn't spectacle it. We didn't spectacle it, Travis. We cast it for its full cost. Yeah. Yep, so we paid the full 3 for it. Found a
Yeah, that's good again.
found a battlefield. Is it Battlefield Forge? Anyway, found the Painland for white and red that will not tap for anything besides a colorless this game. As Kern's at 1. And we'll head to match 3. Travis did. You know, it's the sort of thing where when you see something and you feel like you can interrupt it before a lot of other game actions happen, oftentimes
I was ready.
you're ready to get up and make it happen so that players don't get too far beyond it. And you know, sometimes
You pulled me back in at the right time.
yeah, sometimes it's the right choice, sometimes it's the wrong choice, and you know, we did it. So
okay, continue.
I was gonna players not really. It looks like Curran's sideboarding out a couple cards, or possibly just pulling the old get out the sideboard, take another look, move a couple cards around, and keep the same thing in.
I recently was really coffee deprived and I played some Modern on Sunday. And what I usually do is I move cards I'm going to sideboard out to the front and then put cards I'm going to sideboard in the back. And then I'll like do the counts and then take the cards out of my deck. And I hadn't had a cup of coffee and I was playing some Modern at like noon in an event at a game store here. And I forgot to take the cards I was sideboarding out of my deck, and I presented a 50 or a 68 card deck, which is legal. Definitely had to mulligan a couple times because I didn't have enough land, and then drew some cards that shouldn't have been in my deck.
Did you win the match?
I won the match.
Oh my gosh!
We all make mistakes. Sometimes we don't get punished.
You know, you're supposed to get punished. So Amy's got to be a little bit happy here not to see a turn 1 creature from Curran. I think the strongest starts for the burn deck usually are a turn 1 creature.
Especially if you follow it up with an Aether Vial, which we don't have for Amy.
You think Curran brought in any artifact destruction effects?
Oh, I think that's a bad call. I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
Curran's a good player. Curran wouldn't do that either.
Well, there you have it, folks.
This must feel great if you're Curran, where your opponent didn't play a turn 1 Vial, and you're able to resolve an Eidolon without your opponent having anything on the board.
Yeah, it's pretty strong. Because you're probably going to be able to just continue to 1-for-1 whatever Amy's got going on with your burn spells while continuing to... Ooh.
So I was getting ready to say, if I was Curran, there's no way I would bring in Artifact Destruction unless I saw a Chalice of the Void, and I haven't seen any Chalice of the Voids, and then here we go. Here's the Chalice of the Void.
Which, you know, Chalice is a strong card in the matchup. However, on the draw, it's a little bit rough, and Amy's still in a really tough spot. His Searing effects are all still going to be able to go off, and unless Amy can present 2 viable blockers a turn, Curran's still going to be able to deal a lot of damage this game.
And we also see a Boros Charm in Curran's hand. I think Amy might be setting up for a block the Eidolon with a Mutavault, and I'd love to see the Indestructible clause from Boros Charm, if that's where this situation ends up taking us.
See Silvergill run out, and we show off another Silvergill.
That's always a good feel.
Again, Amy with a great handful of cards. Just seeing a single Force of Negation, I feel like could just make such a huge difference in this game.
Ooh, this feels like a Searing effect to me.
I do have a feeling that we would have seen Force of Negation at this point if Amy was playing them. That said, I mean, Chalice was a bit of a surprise as well, so.
3 to Silvergill, 3 to you, and I'll take 2. Yep. So I have 14-8. Yep. And I'll attack for 2.
I think Curran's going to wrap this one up.
Yep, it's going to be really tough for Amy to get out of this stranglehold at this point.
I think I see at least one Boros Charm hanging out in Curran's hand.
Yeah, looks like Chalice is blanking 2 spells in Curran's hand, but yeah, just the Boros Charm and the Eidolon is probably going to be enough to get it done as Amy's priced into playing a creature this turn, I think.
Turn. Master.
Yeah, thought we might have gotten a Master of the Waves there, but we did not.
Okay. I mean, Mutavault does block this Eidolon. Might see a flashed in Trickster.
I kind of don't like that attack from Curran, to be honest. Especially if you're sitting on the Boros Charm, you just need your opponent to cast one more spell, and then you win the game.
This is interesting, yeah, because Curran only has the Boros Charm and then 3 uncastable spells.
I kind of like, at this point, I'm casting Boros Charm for Indestructible. Oh, interesting. I mean, that was a tough call, but, you know, you've already played your land, so even if you draw a Searing Effect off the top, you're going to need to draw another land. So I kind of like that Boros Charm basically acting as, you know, a way to protect your Eidolon, which Amy's deck all cost pretty much 3 or less from what we've seen so far in this match.
This is huge, though. There's a very real possibility that Amy can come back here. And I really felt like the match was wrapped up in Curran's favor. Okay, so Curran will put Amy down to 2. Nice. Amy properly dodging the chalice check, and it's a light up the stage for Curran, so gonna have to pay full value for that. We'll see 2 off the top,
Ooh.
and that won't do it
I
this
kind
turn.
of don't like playing the land. I don't like playing the land there because if you draw a Searing Effect off the top, which I assume you haven't cited out because we've already seen one, there's no real reason that you're going to need 5 mana unless you're trying to play around Mana Leak, which seems like more unlikely to me.
I think I agree. It's definitely a small edge.
Yep, so 3 and 4, 7.
And we put Curran down to 7, so Curran's dead next turn. If you're Amy, does Amy have counter magic? And that's what we'll find out here on Curran's turn.
This is where I eat my words and like the counter magic is like Mana Leak.
Does Amy have an answer to this Helix? Oh, it does not have an answer, and Curran takes it.
That was a cool match.
Yeah, a really nice sequence. I think really representative of kind of how these two the matchup between these two decks plays out, and how close the matchup really is. Oftentimes, it's just a turn off on one side or the other.
And I do feel, especially with Eidolon of the Great Rebel, that Aether Vial versus non-Aether Vial draws are pretty polarizing. And yeah, if you can lead off on turn 1 Aether Vial, you're pretty favored if you're Merfolk against Burn. And if you're having to just cast 1 spell a turn, then you're probably going to fall behind. And
it did feel like Amy's list is kind of a more traditional, maybe an older style Merfolk list. We didn't see any Okos or, which not that Oko is a Merfolk specific card, but possibly a card that we would see. No Okos and no Force of Negation. Both cards that I think would have been strong in this matchup.
I think if you're playing Oko, you're not playing Merfolk. Which I feel like pretty strong in that, but I do feel like Force of Negation is a card that you would play, and maybe Collected Company if you're splashing the green.
Yeah, and didn't see any counter spells from Amy's deck in the post-board game, so not sure if there aren't any in the board or if we just didn't end up seeing any of them.
Yeah, I bet we just didn't see them, and the hand was kept on the power of the creatures. I also want to give a shout out to Mark, who earlier just mentioned watching some Jeskai from last week, and I want to say thanks for watching. That's fun. It's my favorite deck. If you have any questions, shoot them out to us on Twitter or in chat. But yeah, do we have time for another match in round number 2? Are we going to do a twofer for 1 and 2?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
So we will return here shortly with the end of another match.